I'm around. We're totally live.
No music.
No
Okay.
music.
Yeah.
This new setup gets me every time.
No, when we do the full setup here with the camera and the lights and everything,
Yeah.
Grayden, it's only been 4 years. Okay,
Right?
just, you know.
One of these days, I'm really going to get it.
Yeah. Oh, well, we like the variety.
Grayden was always a slow learner as his teacher. I can tell you that. It took a little extra time. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
No.
look
at how
he's done well.
He's grown. The success is incredible now, and now he's learning how to dance too. So it's
I mean, learning's a stretch. Learning's
Yeah.
a stretch,
No.
and that's Dancing with the Stars, September 8th. Jess and I are going to be there. You should come for the drinks, and if you're lucky, you'll get some comedy at the same time.
Oh no, and Joe and Stephanie are there also, and I blame our goodness on Jim and Rita Herbert.
Yep.
Mostly Rita. So
The trick is to go for fan favorite.
yeah,
Yeah, Jay and I won fan favorite last year.
Fan favorite.
Stephanie will be fan favorite.
What-
we don't know if she can drag Joe along with her.
What are you going to be wearing? You got your wardrobe
We
picked
haven't
out
worked
so far?
out the wardrobe yet. I thought we were going to go with just maybe some thigh-high boots and a Speedo, but we've been.
So you ditched the thigh-high boots.
Yeah. yeah, and you should see the spins we can do. All right, let's get on with the real show.
In sweaty bare feet, I'm sure you can spin easier on the ground, right?
No, that's what I'm working on. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been trying it. It's accurate.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, you should see the spinning we're doing. It's
We don't need to hear about this. It's a G-rated show tonight, Joe.
No, great. and we have such a huge amount of information to cover this week because the two great councillors sitting here with me today covered for this city at AMO Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week that took place over in London. The mayor kept having to drive back and forth, but the different consultations with ministers and many of the different workshops were attended. St. Thomas was well present. So let's start with AMO. And I understand the Premier kicked the event off on Monday, and I wasn't able to be here as you were at a meeting with Volkswagen. But I hear the Premier said some very nice things about St. Thomas. And, it's great to be noticed. And really, in all of the consultations we had with ministers, they all knew who we were and where we were from. That's a big thing to drag our city to the forefront. But nice of the Premier to do that on Monday. And then we had a number of meetings with ministers. All right, so let's Tara McCaulley and Steve Wookey. I forgot to say, Steve's first time on the show in a
4
term
years
and a half of council. He finally decided to come on Mayor's Update. So
I'm only here so I won't get fined.
we like it.
I mean it.
Yeah. No,
I had to be here.
We weren't supposed to talk about that.
we were running out of
We
time.
were keeping that under wraps.
Like people don't get remanded in custody for much anymore, but they were going to throw me in the slammer.
Right.
We weren't.
So first minister we saw on Monday, I wasn't there. I know that I think, Terry, you took the Solicitor General. Tell us in a short bit of what happened seeing the Solicitor General.
Yeah, so I went with Taylor Mooney,
Right.
and Chief, and just presented some of the challenges that our police forces is facing, and very proactive police force. And so our meeting was really about, here are the challenges, here's the solution we've identified, and much of that was applying for provincial grants that were available. And so our crisis response team, we're looking at enhancing that. So the police services has applied for a grant for that. Our crime severity index, as you have talked about in the past, is increasing. So they applied for multiple grants to address things like auto theft prevention, bail compliance, and warrant apprehension, and victim services support. So what was great about it is that leaving that was that because we'd already applied for a lot of this funding, and many communities hadn't yet been even aware of some of this funding. So it positioned us well, and kudos to Chief Roskamp for looking at things strategically and planning and preparing the house, so to speak.
I don't know which one of you wants to talk about Minister Tabulo. We have met with Minister Tabulo every AMO that we've been to. He's become a huge fan of St. Thomas and a very good friend of St. Thomas, and the mayor and Dr. Guyana up at the hospital and him have become very good friends too. But who led the health?
I led the health. Actually, it was a tag team effort.
Great.
Because what we were asking for with the Minister of Health is 15 crisis stabilization beds and withdrawal, or 15 crisis stabilization and withdrawal management beds,
Perfect.
as well as 10 bed residential treatment center.
Mm-hmm.
And so, putting that forward, and
He gets it, doesn't he?
he does. He
Yeah.
gets it, and helping him to understand the challenges in our community that are not unique. And certainly we've made some strides in this area, but there's still lots of work to do.
Yeah, and the minister, to be truthful, Minister Tabolo has issued some funds to St. Thomas for rehab and detox beds through the CMHA. And we know we need more of it, and it's our way to address the addiction issue we have here. But he's also well aware of what we've done with supportive housing and how that is both mental health and addictions also. And so he loves where we are from a homelessness point of view, a homeless correction point of view, because he knows that some good health money is going into those projects too.
He made it very clear that, to us, that he understands the big picture of the complete wraparound.
Yes.
And I was so impressed by what he was saying.
Yeah,
I looked up his bio. He's, I think, the chair of the Caritas School of Life in Woodbridge, which is a 24-month residential treatment
Rehab, treatment center,
and
yes.
so he's totally, that's his whole thing. And when he asked us about how long would you propose these residential beds would be occupied for, and Heather Sheridan, social service director, said, well, 30 days to maybe 90 days. He loved that because he said, you can't have just a 30-day, because sometimes in 30 days, that's how long it takes to get a psychiatric assessment done,
Right.
let alone any treatment.
Right.
And so he loved our forward thinking in terms of not everybody reacts in the same way, in the same rate, all those things.
As I said, he's been active with us in St. Thomas, mostly even through COVID, on a lot of Zoom calls about what we're doing from our our safety measures in St. Thomas. So he gets what we're doing locally and likes what we're doing, wishes he could do more. And I know he's told us now again, be ready. I think we'll see more from him. The next minister we saw next ministry we saw was the Ministry of Education. I think, Steve, you were there for that one too?
Yeah, that was, I love doing that one because as a 30-year educator, you have certain insights. And what I loved was the Associate Minister, Barnes. She was a school board trustee in Ajax before she became an MPP. So you've got a municipal politician, a provincial politician, a teacher, and a trustee sitting down talking about education. So that worked. Now, our initial ask was all about funding for childcare spaces, capital and or operating, because as St. Thomas grows, we're mandated, what is it, 700? Is it 700 is the number of childcare spaces? And that is difficult because we stress that our childcare agencies do not have the capital or access to the capital to build that.
Right.
Then let alone staff it with, ECE is a very important job, and they are chronically undervalued financially. Valued because we care a lot about kids and the people who are caring for them, but undervalued financially in the private sector. So we talked about there should be a higher floor for ECE wages to make sure there's people in the programs, because you can build whatever daycare you want, but if you can't staff it, well, then you have an empty building.
Great.
So that was one thing we talked about. Then we talked about police in schools and trying to create an environment where police can be in schools and to bridge the gap between youth and police in a positive environment. And I stressed that the police services in St. Thomas is very open to whatever kind of innovative ideas, because they've demonstrated that to us already. They're innovative. To say whether it's special constables, whether it's members of the MOST team, whether it's, there could be some way. We don't have to have officers with firearms walking down the hallway, doing a beat in the school. Right. And that was one. And then the last thing I talked to them about was simply one of my pet peeves is that the school board and the municipality seems to operate in like completely separate worlds. And when I got into council in 2014, I thought there'd be it's not that we don't like each other. It's just that municipal act and education act are separate. And they live in
drastically different things. Yeah.
But the fact that we don't push a button and we automatically have our subdivision plans, in their hands, and they have those automatically in the ministry's hands, so we can build schools quicker. Those are some of the things we talked about. But Associate Minister Barnes, she was outstanding. She understood our concerns, and she had some concrete ideas for moving forward. And I think she heard the childcare piece from almost everybody that walked in the room, because we all know that that's a major stumbling block.
Certainly, and St. Thomas has taken some major measures with our new childcare spaces open, and we certainly are responsible for childcare costs, the county, and new spots opening up in Elmer and some in the West End too. It's not enough, and they're getting it, but they heard it from us this week too. Fantastic. The next one was the Ministry of Transportation. Now, on the sidelines, we had conversations with the Mayor of London and the Minister of Transportation, but in our ministerial, I think it was Minister Chow.
Yeah,
right?
it was both of us.
Perfect.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Great work.
We've seen Minister Joe quite
Yes.
a number of times, and stress the urgency behind transportation to and from London. You have some pretty significant employers and opportunities for employment, whether you're in London and want to be in St. Thomas, or St. Thomas and vice versa. And if you don't drive, or you want to look at different ways of transportation. So he definitely understood the urgency. He's getting the urgency, and Steve was able to provide a real life example, which he loved testimonials. And so Steve gave an excellent testimonial. And if you'll share that, Steve.
I spent years showing a ShamWow and Slapchop commercials in my civics class to detect bias and all that kind of stuff. So I used my deep knowledge of infomercials to good use here. And I basically described how my daughter, who was studying chemistry at Waterloo, she had a placement in Mississauga, and she lived in Brampton and was able to take transit. She had one that was in Cambridge. She lived in the south end of Cambridge with my sister-in-law and traveled the north end of Cambridge, public transit. Right. How she was at an apartment near UW, University of Waterloo, and was able to go to the south end of Kitchener with transit to go to Ampersett Polymers for her co-op. But yet, when she moved back to St. Thomas after degree, there was just no way for her to get to South London without a license and a car. So Minister Cho's, in his previous job, he had a territory that stretched from Toronto to Kapuskasing, I read in his bio. So I got that little plug-in saying that, if you want to take public transit to London from St. Thomas, it's approximately the same as trying to get public transit from Toronto to Kapuskasing.
So great. Use an example. It works well for him.
Very accurate.
But you're right.
I'm sure you understood that.
It's not that we've been quiet on this file at all. And I wanted to just jump in here, because on the sidelines at AMO, I certainly had conversations with Josh Morgan, the Mayor of London, and some other providers of regional transportation. And I'm smiling because I think in the next couple of weeks, we're going to hear some pretty good things about what we were able to accomplish. We've got to be able to let young people in St. Thomas get to Western, get to Fanshawe in London, get to jobs in London. And along with that, with the great things that have been happening lately, certainly with Maple Leaf Foods, the Amazon plant now hiring up, our North Star windows, and anything else in London, we will win this transportation thing long before it's a need for Volkswagen. But it's another thing that's helping us sell it to ministers, that we'll need to get people from other places to St. Thomas to work in high-paying jobs like Volkswagen. So thank you for the work you've done on that. The next minister we saw was housing, Minister Clark.
I've never met a Steve I didn't like.
No, well, he's and there's another fellow who knows what's going on in St. Thomas. He's been part of what we've been doing, negotiating with.
Hey, Your Worship, there statistically speaking, this is a proven fact. There are no jerks who are named Steve.
I'm going to think that one through.
Never met
You're
one.
Probably right. I can't think.
I've
one
been around a long
doesn't come
time.
to my mind right away. No jerks. But so Minister Clark has the toughest portfolio in the province, but the ear of the ministries of the cabinet. Everything this group is working on is putting more housing in each of the places in Ontario. We've heard pretty graphically that 500 immigration alone was 500,000 new people into the province, and finding housing for those 500,000, which truly was 1.1 million came to Canada. And as the Premier continues to say, we will have a lot of people of those other 600,000 that will end up in Ontario. They've started off in other provinces, but will end up here. So housing, announced a couple more pretty good housing funds, some more things that strong mayors could do, but certainly some bonusing for communities like ours that are meeting their housing goals and moving forward to allow you to do more. we're pretty comfortable with where we've gone in St. Thomas. We feel pretty good, certainly from a supportive housing point of view. But we know with the introduction of a number of construction jobs and then full-time jobs at Volkswagen, we've got to go more. There was not a topic we brought up that Minister Clark hadn't already heard from Rob Black on. Right? I wanted to talk about Tiny Hope, and I thought we could really know all about it. Flackie's been telling me every day, he's poking me with, what are you doing about this? Really, super job communicating from Elgin, Middlesex, London to the minister. So I've got to just tell you, we've got a friend in Steve Clark, but we've got to keep that open, and we'll continue to make sure that happens from a housing point of view. The last one we had was social services and children's services, the minister of those two files. And it was, what are we talking about? Well, mostly we were talking about that there'd been a decrease in the administrative dollars given to the city of St. Thomas in order to administer OW and ODSP. We did talk about the ODSP office disappearing in St. Thomas and ending up in London. And of course, not one person on ODSP can afford a car to go to London to that office. And so we're talking about how we can do that better. We certainly did talk about the range of pay on OW or on ODSP, and how do we make that better? Certainly, the best thing anybody can have is a job. And we've got lots of them available. We've got to determine what we have to teach different in order to make those jobs available to people who currently aren't working. The minister was all but acceptive to all of the thoughts we were having. We also talked that there's some people who may currently be on OW who can't get to ODSP where they really should be because they have a disability, whether it's any sort of disability, including mental or whatever, because they don't have a family doctor. And the amount of forms you have to fill out to move from one to the other onto ODSP is just beyond being able to be done. So having done that with Stephanie or working in my own family, we know what that's like. So the minister was more than receptive with all of these.
And this morning I attended sessions specific on homelessness and the housing crisis specifically related to affordable housing. Mm-hmm. And that was a big one that came across from all speakers was the amount that people on Ontario Works receive. Right. And just a little bit of a tidbit. So in 1993, as a single mother with two young boys, I was on social assistance, and the amount that I was making back then is
pretty much the same.
Yeah. And so a person on Ontario Works is living 17% below the poverty level. So it's really important that, that it's all communities that are saying the same thing and advocating for that, because how do we help people get ahead if they're constantly behind the eight ball?
Well, and we talked even to the minister ourselves when we were there about, yes, we'd love everybody to move into a well-paying job, a good job, and move off OW. But sometimes the benefits that they have on OW are worth more than the pay of OW. Can't afford to lose my health care, can't afford to lose my prescription drug, those types of things. And we just talked to the minister, well, can we find a bridge here? Can we find a way to make it so that it is better to go to work and keep your benefits from OW than to just stay on OW and not work at all? In a place where we have probably 1,000 jobs going wanting right now in St. Thomas and more than 1,000 people who aren't working, that we should be able to connect those two in a vibrant way. The minister agreed, and let's keep working on making that the right thing in St. Thomas, that this is the place where you can work and do the things that you couldn't do just on OW. So
when I was in the health unit, I was struck by how challenging it was, and I won't get into details because it's not important, but there are certain communities that are not on fluoridated water.
Right.
And the dental disease among young children is terrible. And when I think about something like benefits like that, I mean, I'm no raging socialist, but I certainly would love to see the working poor have benefits for basic things. And when you think about dental, if you are in pain, if anybody's had, how do you school, right? How do you work when your health is so poor that you can't focus on what you're doing? And, I'm not an expert in the field, but I get the fact that when you're in pain or when you're suffering, like, good luck trying to work 40 hours a week.
Well, and the same holds true. If you're at a near minimum wage job or anything just above minimum wage and you're not have a benefit program, you can't get the prescription drugs you need that will really solve basic medical issues. On OW, you can, but your wages are less. So let's put together a big basket that does both. And we think our city would be far richer if we did it. And that's really what we shared with the minister too.
Yeah.
So, Grayden, we got any questions coming in from
We
anybody
do.
on any of the AMO topics?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, first off, we've got a comment going back to the police conversation
Right.
from Margaret McKnight saying she agrees with police in schools, especially higher grades and secondary schools. And she follows that up with a question for the hospital beds. And she's like, are the beds Tara spoke about to be located at Steg, which is our hospital?
At this point,
Yes.
we don't have a location. And I know that CMHA has been scouting out some. So at this point, we don't have a location, but there's work being done on that.
And Tara and I had a great conversation right after that day about that. And is there a great way for us to work together with STIG? If there's a spot there for us to be able to do it, it is ideally the right spot to do it with funding from someone else. We don't want to take away funding from our great hospital in any way, but that is a great place to do the isolation therapy that needs to be done for this. So we'll continue to think that's maybe first place to look, and while we continue to gather new places for the CMHA to do the job.
Absolutely. Our next question, I'm going to throw this one to Steve. It's kind of a comment more than a question, but it's I'll get your thoughts on it. Is too many PA days, especially since COVID took the days away?
Too many PA days?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no offense, but we've heard this for a long time. It depends what the nature of the PA days is. Sometimes those are legislated training days in terms of new legislation coming in, and that they are simply required so that everybody's on the same page and doing our legal bit in that. But having said that, I've been 4 years out of the education system, so I can't speak for the education system. I know that us on council, we don't get PA days, but
You don't?
no, we have to train
Yes,
every day
between
a PA
midnight
day?
and 6 each night, we're allowed to sleep.
No,
Yes.
no, I appreciate the
Right.
PA days are a struggle for childcare. Those are days away from work, but certainly there are less of them than there were when I started teaching January 1st, 1990.
Right.
There are less PA days?
Yeah, far less.
Yeah, I think.
Really?
But we do have to train teachers. Let's make that clear. Teachers is a full-time job throughout the school year, and if you can't add some days to talk about new curriculum or other things, we wouldn't think that in any other workforce. We can't have a day of training, right? In every workforce, that's exactly what happens. So a good mix of PA days is exactly a good thing. My opinion. I'm not an educator.
So we also had a visit from a special guest on Monday.
Well, the Premier and Minister Fideli and a lot more visited the mega site out at Ron McNeil and Yarmouth, and we amazed the Premier with how much work and construction is going on out there. Now, this Premier has been pretty solid with us getting this project here. If it hadn't been for a lot of the wrangling with the province at the same time as we're doing negotiating with Volkswagen, it wouldn't have happened. But this is his first chance to be able to come out and see this site and see it under this level of construction. And he stood there looking in each direction. I know you've got some pictures of what happened that day. Grayden was out there with his cameras and his drone and the activity out there. We had a pretty quiet spot where no construction was going on. Where we all had on our vests and our hat hats and safety boots. But
we should mention it was cordoned off as well. So some people were making comments about safety gear. And the reality is they had their health and safety folks there, and anyone could drive in there and stand there without having to have safety gear because they weren't having anybody come in.
But it was great to see the Premier and the smiles even from the Premier when he saw how big this truly was that he had kind of caused to happen. And Minister Fideli the same way. It was great to have them out there with us, and we invited them back every week. We let the Premier sit in a front end loader or a shovel excavator and dump some rocks out of it. And it's
getting some work done.
We got get her done. That's right. So yes, it was great to have him there on Monday also, which is really what's caused me to run around and not be at AMO. But
luckily, you had two folks here who were very talented and wise and
way better people than I could do. So I'm glad we had them there.
Hey, I got one topic before we go.
Go ahead.
Oh no!
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Well, you see, many years ago, Grayden was a student of mine.
Yes.
And a good guy, and I always knew he's a great artist. But then one day he just dropped this on my desk.
Oh no, I don't know what this is, but
Take a look at that piece of artwork.
Oh no, he does great art all the time.
and that was on my wall for 20 years. And what we used to do is in my grade 12 class, when we did the French Revolution, we would actually go and take over another teacher's class. And sometimes I'd tell them, and sometimes I wouldn't. And,
Was it like a revolutionary attack?
we did
Oh,
it. We did it. And we had
What a way to teach.
We had the people standing on chairs doing chants.
Let them eat cake. No.
Yeah, it was totally that. And Grayden did that for me back in, what year would that have been when you were in OAC grade 12?
Man, that would have been like late 1900s.
Yeah. I do tease Grayden. The grade 9 was the best 3 years of his
so
life.
you can see the tape on the back. That was on my wall. So I loved it because I look at the kid. Look at that kid. Look at the mohawk.
This is well, we had a lot of mohawks back then, and there's a guillotine in the picture.
Yeah.
And there's also there's Steve Wookey here with a full head of hair.
Yes, back in the day. And you were probably embellishing even then.
Yeah.
And he's saying,
from the front, it looked way better. No.
tomorrow, remember to bring your pitchforks as we finish out our segment on the French Revolution by storming the principal's office and taking over the school, which is
wasn't far off what we did.
Oh,
so Grayden, I wanted
memory.
to bring that because and that's
wow. I don't. That's
There you
a
go.
blast from the past.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could even maybe I should bring that up.
He's been this way. I tease him.
Oh,
art,
man.
Art one day, photos the next, filming the next. He does such a great job of all of these things. And I just talk. I talk professionally. Don't try it at home. But yeah.
You have to tell me if this is actually like going on camera.
Yeah, we'll see. Grayden's going to hold it in front of the camera, so you can go
Maybe a little bit
closer. Go a little. Yeah.
Yep.
This-
there it is.
So this is like
that was on my wall for 20
25-year-old
years.
artwork.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. All right.
The fact I still have it says how much I appreciated what you did, Grayden,
Perfect.
and how brilliant I thought you are
How many
as an artist.
pieces of things like this do you have from other students? I bet you have a number of them.
I have a file of them, and I also have to admit there are a few photocopied pages of some of the pieces that students wrote that had like wrong words that made it like
Really
completely funny.
funny?
Yeah, that are still there. And every once in a while I'll read them and I laugh out loud
So-
and I say, wow, that's
I was the editor of an underground newspaper that we ran at Central Elgin, and that was a clip from it. I don't know if you ever saw it. Yeah.
Don't think they didn't know what you were doing.
Well, the principal at the time, like it got circulated around, and it was Ellie Gebling. She was the principal, and she picked up a copy, and I was walking by, and she's like, "Grayden, do you know who is producing this horrendous piece of literature and distributing?"
Did you lie, Grayden?
I
Change the subject.
we were laughing.
I was
We were laughing.
redirection. And I was like, I just printed it out in the library.
Yeah.
Because it was like back in the day, like you get these segments here, right? And then you tape them onto an 8x11, and then you put it in the photocopier, and you pay your 10 cents or whatever, and you produce. I forget what I
See,
said.
he was a capitalist even back then.
So anyway, I want to share that because like this is I don't think I'll be coming back for another 4 years. So I mean,
Oh no, you
You better
become a
be.
regular. You're co-host now, so no.
I'm doing this so I don't get fined.
Yeah, I know. And we
didn't-
will
didn't
not
talk
be
about how
fined.
many times I had to
Right.
do it. I thought it just had
Grayden,
to be on.
I think there's probably some more questions there, but we've got just a couple of announcements we've got to make in order to
Yeah.
finish the show. So
We got a minute left.
don't forget Colors in the City. I'm holding up the in Pinafore Park on Saturday, 1 till 5:30. They hand you buy certain colors, and you can throw them at all your friends, and it's a very colorful event. Finishing up today at 8:00 is Stuff the Cruiser over at one of our local grocery
Walmart.
stores at Walmart, and many other back to school fundraisers. The Stuff the Van one last week was our new record amount for the food bank. So thank you to all the groups doing that. And we did already mention Dancing with the Stars coming up on September 8th, but we'll mention it again next week. So I'm not sure if I have any more. How are we doing on time?
We've got about 4 seconds up. We're going to pull it a little bit further because we've got a couple events in Elgin County. There
Yes.
is the Middle River Music
Oh,
Festival
yes.
that's happening at a farm out in Central Elgin.
In the middle
Tara,
of the
do you know
river.
the name of that farm?
I'm having a brain.
Hopefully on Middle River Road.
It is
Yeah,
indeed
Off of
on
Fruit Ridge
common
Line,
ground.
Common
Yeah.
Ground. We get our vegetables there now.
Yeah.
And there was another event. There was a wildflowers
Yes,
farm
on
market,
Friday.
and there's
and
the
our
Horton
own
market.
Yeah, and on Friday, those all proceeds go to the MRI at the hospital.
Yes.
And at Middle River, I think it's Tiny Hope and
What?
was it YWCA, and I think there's two that
And the
they're-
Colors is MRI at
Yes,
the hospital.
yes.
Also, a lot of fundraising happening with for the hospital right now.
Absolutely, and we need as much as we can get. So if you got
Yes.
some extra cash, throw it at the MRI. I love getting MRIs. Don't you guys love getting MRIs? They, like put
Yeah.
the dye in, you go in, it's like.
Well,
No, that was the rave party you went to.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. That's
Okay.
right. You know, a brain kind of stutter. It's been stuttering after that. It's been several
the
days.
CAT scan
Get it
proved
straight,
I actually
Grayden.
did
Yeah,
have
you
a
know,
brain.
it's-
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is shocking sometimes. It's questionable most days.
As the raves were, apparently.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, you know, I wouldn't say they were pretty incredible, you know, overall. But you know, that's another chapter in my life that was an earlier
So
time.
please, if you've been watching Mayor's Update, we've had fun this week, and it's great to have Councillor Wookey out for the first time. But remind your friends, Mayor's Update happened. You can go watch the show right away on established media and watch it all week. And we gain a lot more viewership after the night we actually film it like this. But tell your friends. Check out the thoughts in St. Thomas. We had a lot to share about St. Thomas this week, and I'm glad we're able to.
And I feel like we covered more than 5 minutes worth of information over a 30-minute time span this week. So I'm pretty proud about that.
Unlike what somebody said about us on
A
that
certain
other
website.
But we do respect your freedom of speech.
Absolutely.
Oh no, by all means, right?
Bring it on. Like it's important.
I
That's
hope
what
you're
democracy
watching
is all
this.
about. Democracy is
Yeah.
it's all about. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Hey,
Such a pleasure.
been a pleasure.
Cheers.